Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Baseball Adjacent. I am your host, Taco Josh, and that right there is America's pitching coach. It is Justin Arth wearing a stripper jersey. So do with that what you will. We are talking today all about the trade deadline. This is like, I kind of picture this as like fan fiction, but for baseball fans or sports fans, I guess, because trade deadline happens in every sport. But it's like these might happen and they're kind of exciting to talk about, but also they might not happen and nothing might happen. So that was a lot of words to say. But how are we feeling about this deadline here, Justin?
I think this deadline has a chance of being better than last year's deadline. I mean, we went back right before we started recording and looked at some of the trades just to get the prime pumping in the brain and stuff. Just to kind of remember, take ourselves back to last year and remember where we were at. But in my opinion, I don't feel like there were a lot of amazing trades last year. A lot of teams just kind of held pat or made a lot of the smaller moves. This trade deadline, and maybe we're hyping it up for nothing because there are so many teams still in the mix, but this trade deadline feels like you're going to see a lot of movement with a lot of big players. And obviously, we've already seen Rafi Devers get traded this year. And at the deadline, I think we're going to see some other big moves.
Yeah, it's real interesting. I guess we'll start with the playoff format that kind of enables this, at least slightly. I mean, it's expanded. We're still kind of figuring that out. We're still kind of feeling it out with all the extra teams. The thought, I guess, when they did this was no team is ever truly out of it. I mean, less teams, like it'll incentivize more teams to go for it. The flip side to that, I guess, is now some teams that are on the bubble are like, well, it's such a crap show anyway to get in, so why would we push? But I guess it makes the deadline a little bit more exciting, potentially.
It does. And it does beg the question now that the waiver trade deadline is no more because there are no such thing as waiver trades. Do you push the trade deadline back to like an August 15th? Do you kind of play around with it to give teams more of an idea to figure out, are we truly a buyer or a seller? But if you are like classifying yourself as a seller, this is a great spot with the July 31st trade deadline too. So I think baseball wants excitement, and July 31st keeps it there. But it's a conversation to be had because teams don't know if they're buyers or sellers right now, even though we're 2/3 of the way through the season.
Yeah, something I was thinking about that. I had in my actual real life, I had to drive to Houston from the DFW area today and then back. So I had a lot of thinking time in the car. And I was thinking about uh, the fact that we kind of base our entire are we buying or are we selling potentially on like 1 week of baseball, where it's like, boy, if we get hot in the third week of July and we reel off six in a row, we're going to try to win the World Series. But if that doesn't
Yeah.
happen, we are selling everybody and we're restocking for like 2028. And that to me is just wild, you know? It's a wild
But that's
concept.
baseball.
Yeah, it's just like insane to think about in a 162 game season. We're like, well, the only week that really truly matters and we need to play over 500 baseball is the second to last week of July, so we can figure out what's about to happen in the last week of July. It's why it does make it the expanded playoff. It makes it more interesting. I will say
It
that.
does indeed.
Um, and there's pros and cons to that, and maybe that's a conversation for a playoff episode of whether or not that's actually a positive thing. But I think it is. I think it's at least kind of a positive thing. But
I would agree. More teams in the playoffs. Love it.
yeah, so we're gonna start. Here's how this episode is gonna work for those of you guys watching, or I guess just listening while you're trying to work or go to sleep or whatever it
Or
is you
driving to
do.
and from Houston.
Yeah, whatever it is you guys do. First of all, if y'all are new, hit the like and subscribe button because we talk about baseball a lot on this channel, believe it or not. It's called Baseball Adjacent because that's the sport we talk about. And also, we have a lot of exciting stuff coming up, like a vlog and all that. And also, comment anything. Just say what's up. So here's the way this episode is going to work. We're going to go through some of the bigger players at each like position group. I'm going to say position players like starting pitchers, relievers. And maybe at the end We'll try to snipe some trades. We'll talk about individual teams as we go. Uh, and that's just going to be how we do things. I think we would be remiss if we did not start with talking about where's Eugenio Suarez going to land. I think that's like the big catch of the trade deadline.
Yep.
And as we record this, the Astros finished a sweep of the Diamondbacks this afternoon, I believe.
Yep.
So in my estimation, that pretty much makes them at least not buyers. So where is Eugenio Suarez landing, do we think?
Well, they've got three major potential landing spots. I mean, apparently, according to like Bob Nightingale or whoever I was seeing on Twitter earlier, Seattle Mariners, Cincinnati Reds are two teams that he's played for, are really in on Eugenio Suarez and reuniting. I mean, obviously, both of those teams need third baseman and they need a right-handed bopper in that lineup. So I could very well see him back in either one of those uniforms. But obviously, you still have the evil empire of the New York Yankees sitting around needing a third baseman. And I mean, what was it like 2 or 3 days ago? Jazz Chisholm's now moving back over to second base or shortstop, second base because Anthony Volpe's still playing short despite terrible defense and a weak arm. But either way, like Jazz is no longer playing third base, so now that opens up the third base spot. And there's going to be some other intriguing third basemen on the market. So Yankees, I think, are targeting Eugenio Suarez. And if we're trying to snipe a trade, I do think the New York Yankees pull the trigger on Eugenio Suarez. And Eugenio Suarez is unfortunately donning pinstripes.
It's an interesting predicament the Yankees find themselves in. Their third baseman has been generally bad the whole year. I think Chisholm has been okay over there, but now he's playing second because the shoulder. Is that the injury that's going on? I think.
Yeah, it's something to do with the shoulder, but I also think it has something to do with they know they're going to trade for a third baseman, so go ahead and move him
Yeah.
over, open up the spot.
Yeah. So it's it's not gone well at third base for a lot of the season, and I think Yankee fans would agree with me when I say that. I don't think that's like me just trashing the Yankees. I also know from Twitter or X, Elon's website, that they are not real high on Volpe right now. So left side of the infield is a must. I think
Carlos Correa?
if you're the Yankees, right? Eugenio Suarez, I think, is real interesting for them for a lot of reasons because it plugs the third base hole. He's going to at least be okay at third base defensively. And the
Yep.
hope would be that he hits
Double the amount of home runs in that minor league caliber short porch.
yeah, like 10 home runs down the stretch in the regular season and hits a couple in the postseason. It's a real interesting thought. I think that's the third baseman that a lot of Yankees fans are going to want. And
Yep.
I think they also have the like trade capital to do this. They have
They do.
prospects, they have a farm system. This is not going to be a lot of us just naming random prospects because I don't care and I know you the viewer don't care. But they have guys that it kind of makes sense that they could make that move. I would like to float a team to you that I personally would hate as a Ranger fan, but the more I think about it, the more it makes sense to me in my head, and that's the Houston Astros. Isaac Paredes is out for they think significant time at third base, and that kind of opens the door at least for the conversation
Yeah.
of hey, if we're serious about this team being good, and I think they are. I think Houston's like, yeah, we're pretty like the pitching is
Oh yeah,
there.
they're the Houston Astros. They continue to not be good on paper, and then hey, they're still first place in the AL West.
They got a 6 game
From this
lead
time.
out west. It's pretty phenomenal for them if we're honest. But I think the injury to Paredes it throws a wrench in the whole third base market, in my opinion. I don't know if they do it, but I think it's a conversation that you would have if you're the Houston front office and you're serious about because the AL right now, just as a whole, is so wide open. Like the
Absolutely.
National League is stacked. I mean, the Brewers, the Cubs are the two best teams in baseball, and I don't think any of us expected that at the beginning of the year because the Dodgers and the Mets and the Phillies exist. The NL is just so deep. The AL is like the exact opposite. Like it's wide
Yeah,
open. So if Houston
it's
adds
very wide open.
a bat, they're the favorites suddenly, maybe even over
Yeah.
the Tigers. I don't know. It's a thought that I had driving home.
Well, and to kind of expound on that thought a little bit, I think from a roster construction standpoint, that's beautiful. I mean, you would get Jordan Alvarez coming back, a left-handed masher. They already have some other lefty bats in that lineup, so you could kind of start to overall like balance out the okay, we need another right-handed bopper in there. Because I mean, like what Pena, isn't he a right-handed hitter?
Yeah.
And I mean, should know more about the Astros, but on the spot, not pulling it off. But either way, like adding another righty to the lineup feels like that balances that team even more. It's just the Houston Astros farm system is not as good as what it was maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago when they were on the cover of Sports Illustrated. They're down with the Atlanta Braves for one of the worst farm systems. As a Braves fan wearing our AAA Stripers jersey, it's not a good farm system. So that's where I think, from a fit standpoint, I love it. I think I love it more than even the Yankees or the Seattle Mariners or the Cincinnati Reds. But I feel like those other three teams have more prospects that can actually get the deal done as opposed to Houston being able to with Paredes out. But Paredes being out and having that spot there, I think it's a perfect landing spot for him if Houston can figure out how to do the deal.
Yeah, I will give you one more team I was thinking about that you didn't list because I think I'm not going to list teams that you just listed. I think the Cubs are a real interesting spot. I think if you look at that lineup and the Cubs are like, we have 1 year with Kyle Tucker, and by golly, we're gonna try to go for it. They need pitching, yeah. So does the rest of the league. But if you were gonna throw a bat and you're like, hey, we're going all in because we're the best team in baseball somehow. We have a hired gun in Kyle Tucker. We have one of the most exciting players having a breakout season in PCA. Seiya's been really good. Dansby is here and he was supposed to like kind of help turn this whole thing around and now it's happened and we have other pieces plugging Suarez into that lineup. I mean, it's an embarrassment of riches for the Cubs. I don't know if they do it, but it would be again, same as Houston, it would be a conversation that I would have in the
Yep.
front office of like how much does this cost and then how in are we actually this year because of how loaded the NL is, but also it's like how many shots are you going to have realistically to be one of the best teams in baseball and maybe just be a bat and an arm away from another World Series. Like I don't know. It's a real interesting conversation for Houston and the Cubs. I guess if you're like, just pick a team, I think I would also probably land on the Yankees. But I do think second place in my mind is the Cubs, and then my wild card, I guess, for Suarez is Houston, because
Yeah.
the more I think about it, the more sense it makes. And I guess let's stick with guys that maybe won't even be traded. I guess let us know, who do you think Suarez is going to get traded for? But let's stick with position players. We're going to go to the other big one whose name has been floated, and that's Jared Durant. Where do you have him?
So I actually do think he is a part of what I will probably say is the biggest trade of the season. And yes, we've had Rafael Devers already traded. So there's been a lot of rumors recently because we see what Boston has in the outfield, and Jaron Duran, again, the best of the 4 or 5 outfielders they really have for the 4 spots that they have with the DH and the 3 outfielders. But Jaron Duran also has the most value. I mean, Wilyer Abreu's kind of being thrown around left or right too, but again, Duran's going to get you something even bigger. This team can still make a run because, again, we talk about the American League being so wide open. But I've seen Duran dangled out there, and the San Diego Padres really need to fill a spot in left field. Really wouldn't hurt to add someone like Duran to that lineup. And the San Diego Padres have mentioned that they love Duran so much they are willing to do crazy things for him in terms of trading some crazy things. And so I've kind of got a little bit of a crazy trade here. I think Jarren Duran goes to the San Diego Padres to fill the left field spot that was now vacated by Jurickson Profar leaving to come to Atlanta. And then you pretty much trade an arm for a bat, and Dylan Cease, who's a free agent at the end of the year, goes to Boston to help out their pitching need. So Duran to San Diego, Cease to Boston.
I guess that opens up a bigger conversation because that's like a half in, half out trade for Boston,
Yeah,
right?
it's a big time lateral move.
Yeah, it's like you're trading a major league guy for a major league guy. You have, you said it,
I think
four
there's more going to
outfielders.
be involved in it from San Diego's
Yeah.
perspective to get Duran, but yeah, essentially.
Yeah, there will be like other prospects or whatever involved, but it is like you're right. Boston has four outfielders now, especially with Yoshida back and the way they're using him. I guess for me, right, if I'm a Red Sox fan, I've just watched them trade away Devers, who was supposed to be the next, like, Devers was supposed to have his number retired in Boston. Like, that's the direction that this whole thing was heading before the offseason. And we just traded him. And then, you're like emotionally recovering from that kind of because they've actually been pretty good since that trade somehow.
Yeah.
And then the front office turns around and is like, "Hey, you remember that guy that won All-Star Game MVP last year and almost had a 9-WAR season? Yeah, we're also going to trade him because we have too many outfielders. He's the best one, so we're actually getting rid of him." And you're like, "Well, the front office sucks. Like the front office doesn't want me to be happy." I guess I just don't I have a hard time envisioning. I guess if I'm Boston, it would have to be an insane haul for me to feel okay
Yeah.
about letting Duran go. And I
Well,
think that
and
would
that's
even be
why
beyond just like Dylan Cease. Like I think it'd have to be Dylan
yeah.
Cease plus a top guy and maybe two.
Yeah. And that's why putting my GM hat on, I do, and seeing what I'm seeing reported from San Diego people saying they're willing to move heaven and earth to get Duran. That's where I feel like it's just going to be one of those too good of an offer you can't refuse type deal to say, okay, well, we still get Dylan Cease in a year that we have now more money off the books with Devers being gone, with now Duran and his extension or whatever he was on being gone. Does this money go back to Cease when he's a free agent this offseason to have another pitcher to kind of bolster this rotation that is okay, but it's not amazing. And this team offensively, even again with Duran, is doing amazing right now. They're in the AL playoff hunt. But if you can keep everything together with a Wilyer Abreu, with a Roman Anthony, and with the other guys around this team that is making it successful, I mean, hey, you can still make a run, and Jarren Duran gets you Dylan Cease and pitching wins in the playoffs.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. I think if he's
And then you
going
restock with
some
prospects too.
Yeah, if he's going somewhere, I think San Diego makes a lot of sense actually. I think an underrated team there would maybe be the Mets because I know they're looking for an outfielder and they've been linked to like Cedric Mullins and people like that. I don't
Yep.
like the price tag for them is probably a little high on like in like the giving them prospects side of things. Uh, I
Well,
like
and what I've seen today too is the Mets are willing to trade up from their middle infield depth
yeah.
and prospects and stuff there, and the Mets have a ton of them. So is Lisan Acuna good enough, or is Brett Beatty or somebody else in that kind of stable?
Mhm.
Are they a big enough get for San Diego to say, hey, let's take another shortstop essentially and figure out if he plays left, or excuse me, if he plays shortstop or if he plays first base or whatever.
Yeah, I guess
And he could.
that would be going to like Boston. My problem with Boston is they have 800 prospects, right? And outside of Roman Anthony, they're all shortstops. So
True.
like, what are you gonna do with
It's like the San
Angel?
Diego strategy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They
Uh,
all play somewhere.
it's interesting. It's interesting. I have a hard time seeing Duran get moved, but I guess right if your outfield if you're like, hey, Roman Anthony is here and he is playing the outfield, and also Rafaela and Abreu are here and they're playing the outfield, and we
Shoot.
kind of believe that Christian Campbell is going to play second, if not, this year. Obviously, it's been up and down, but like he's the second baseman of the future for Boston,
Yep.
likely. Like, Durant isn't going to go play short over Story, however long that deal is. So I don't know. They're in like a tricky spot. They have like we talked about it during the Devers saga because that was like its own thing. Is like they have so many bats, they almost have too many bats, and I don't know that Duran would be the one that I would move. I guess is
Yeah.
my deal.
Wilyer Abreu would be the one I would move personally. But again, I think Duran gets you a lot more to build this team for the future. And Duran is a year or two older than a lot of this young core. And you got to build around now this young core and let the kids play. And maybe you make it this year. If not, you're playing for 26.
Yeah. I guess let's move on. We'll do some more position players at the end, some like quick hitters maybe. Let's move on to some pitching. There's a couple of big guys. I guess the guy we should start with is the guy who this deadline was supposed to be about, and it was Sandy Alcantara. And then he went out and had like an 80 RA for the first while, and then everybody was like, I don't even know if he's tradable. And then he had
Well, he
four good
pitched really well
starts.
against the Padres today. So that trade stock, maybe it's coming back up.
Yeah. He had like four good starts. I guess now five good starts, two of them against like the worst teams in baseball, but we won't talk about that.
This one
Uh,
against the Padres.
yep. I have a hard time knowing what his value is. It's like an investment thing because it's like his first year
Yeah.
back from Tommy John. It's hard to expect a guy. You see all the like success stories of like, oh, this guy came back from Tommy John and was immediately better. But that doesn't always happen. Like sometimes there is like this buffer of time while they're like figuring it out. And I think that's all that's happening to Alcantara. But it does make the value proposition difficult because he is controllable.
Yep, and it's a really cheap contract compared to what he should be giving you if he's confident and healthy.
Yeah. So like I don't know. He's good. Like he should be good. He should be good by the end of his deal. I think he has 2 more years of control after this. So it's like it's almost an investment type of thing. And he could even go to a team that's like not necessarily in right now. Like if you're projecting ahead and you're like, we're kind of in, sort of, but definitely next year and the year after that, and you just want him for
Yep.
that window, that's a very real possibility to me. Where do you think he's going? I guess is the big question.
Well, I love everyone loves mocking him to the Cubs, and I do think the Cubs are a good fit. The Cubs have a lot of question marks this offseason on what are they going to do, and having someone like Sandy in that rotation for at least another 3 or 2.5 years, or 2 and a third years, whatever we really want to say, I think helps extend this window for the Cubs. But I'm not gonna go with the same grain and say that he's a Chicago Cub. I do think this is a Los Angeles Dodgers move. The Dodgers have a lot of prospects that they can deal. They need pitching depth, preferably probably in the bullpen right now because they are starting to get healthier with the starters. And we've talked about for podcast on podcast how many like major league, AAA, AA level starters that they have, that the Dodgers have, that are all major league caliber pitchers. They could fill up like rotations all the way down to AA with all the starters they have. But again, healthy pitching and confident pitching wins you in the playoffs. And this Dodger team does not want to be one that gets eliminated in the NLDS. When they face like maybe a hot Milwaukee Brewers team that misses out on the playoffs, or excuse me, misses out on the division. So the thing is, like, I think Sandy Alcantara is a Los Angeles Dodger, although it pains me as a Braves fan to say. A lot of this makes too much sense. They're saving a lot of money with all these deferred deals, and it's a cheaper contract compared to what Sandy should be giving you. This just feels like Dodgers written all over it.
I agree with everything you just said, except for the team name. I think that the team that he lands on here is actually going to be Toronto. And let me
Okay.
tell you why.
And that's a good landing spot too.
Toronto needs starters, and so Toronto is in the position right now. They lead the West by 3 games. They just have kind of gone on a run at the correct time, and the Yankees fell at that same time. And so now suddenly they lead the AL East by 3 games. This is at the beginning of the year, if you remember all the way back to like spring training, we were talking about Toronto might not even be in. Like if they get here and they're not, we were talking 500. Like they may not even be a wild card team. Do they sell Vlad? Do they sell Bichette? All of the things. Now we're here. They're leading the division. They already extended Vlad. So their window now has
Huge.
extended from like 1 year potentially to several. And
Yeah, at
Alcantara
least
is
three.
controllable.
Yeah.
So I think that it just makes sense in my mind. It just kind of lines up to me that Alcantara would wind up there. I think it makes sense. I think you get Vladdy a friend. And I think it's a real thing where it's like Toronto has had trouble signing free agents, right? So
Yep.
the only
Very
alternative to
true.
that is to trade for
Big
people.
trade.
And so you don't necessarily need to sign people if you're just going to trade for them. So that's kind of my rationale behind that. I guess, again, commenters, just let us know where you think he's landing. That to me makes a lot of sense. Here's my caveat because the Yankees sneaky need pitching after the Clark Schmidt thing. If Eugenio doesn't land in New York, I think they land Sandy because it's
Okay.
controllable pitching. Schmidt's going to probably be out for a chunk of next year also, and they're aimed less from like a rental pitcher to a like multi-year deal pitcher, and I think they will want to make a splash, and Alcantara would be a splash. So that's I guess the caveat to that for me.
Yeah, not a bad caveat. But while we're in the AL East, I'll say one up you, but I'll give you another Toronto Blue Jays prediction, and this is based on some reports today as well. The Toronto Blue Jays are enamored with Zach Gallen. The Arizona Diamondbacks, like you said earlier, their fate's kind of already been sealed as a seller after being swept this weekend or this week, excuse me. And so although I don't maybe agree that Zach Gallen should be the target of the Toronto Blue Jays, they seem to be enamored by him. And he does kind of have a funky-ish delivery that Toronto tends to like with like your Chris Bassett's of the world. So Zach Gallen to the Toronto Blue Jays would be my pick to fill that Toronto Blue Jays hole.
Okay, okay, I like that. Uh, I guess the other like notable guys outside of those, I mean, there's a bunch, but the guys I would like to talk about, Seth Lugo is real
Yep.
interesting to me. Has experience out of the pen at least a little bit. He's going to be used likely as a starter, but like if you needed him in a playoff series out of the pen as like a multi-inning guy, he could. Uh, I it's interesting to me to think about where he kind of lands. And then also Mitch Keller from Pittsburgh. He's likely getting moved, although I don't know that that's as for sure a shot as people think. I
Hmm.
think they would have to get wowed because he does still have years of control left. Like he's there for a while, so the deal. I think it wouldn't have to like be an unbelievable deal for Pittsburgh to do it, but they have other guys that they can trade that aren't Mitch Keller that
Yep.
leave the rotation more intact. I guess why don't you take a stab at Lugo and I'll take a stab at Keller. Where do you think Lugo's landing potentially?
Yeah, so whenever I look at Lugo, there's a lot of different options that he could go, especially with isn't he still controllable at least for another year
Yeah, he's got like
or
another
two?
2 or 3.
Yeah. So you look at teams, for example, you talked about the Yankees needing an arm that's maybe more controllable. I'll keep it in the same city. I think I think he's reunited with the New York Mets. The New York Mets are going to want pitching because everybody wants pitching. And yeah, I think the New York Mets with Seth Lugo, he's familiar there. Not sure how that time in New York really went for him in terms of how he felt about it. But I do think there's a reunion on the horizon. But I could see teams like the Cubs or the Yankees or anyone that, or even Boston that would want, they could be in play as well. I just think he's a Met.
I kind of like that. I think so. My thought here on Mitch Keller is going to be he's controllable. Mitch Keller is the guy I was looking up, is controllable through the 2028 season, so he's a free agent in 2029, so he's got a while. So
Yeah,
that to me screams you don't even necessarily need to be in the race right now. And I'll throw like a weird one out there that I think could hit. If the Tigers are like, hey, we want a guy that can be the second fiddle for a bit and just be there, because Keller kind of does everything. He's like a good pitcher, but he also eats innings. And that combination of things I think is valuable. Like, I think you
it
need a
is.
guy in today's baseball that kind of saves the pen once every 5 days. Again, I think it would have to be a crazy offer to get Mitch Keller off of Pittsburgh because they have other guys. I mean, just reading your notes here, Justin, we got Andrew Heaney is like the other big starter that you could see moved, but they have pen pieces. They have Santana, they have Bednar, Ferguson, they have position, like there's other guys that Pittsburgh can move to get farm system back that have
Yep.
expiring deals that I don't know that Mitch Keller is high on the priority list to do unless they get wowed, you know?
Yeah, well, just keep it on Mitch Keller. I'll just throw mine out there just because I think I have a pretty spicy take. I think the Chicago Cubs steal a division rival and they blow the Pirates away, which Pirates fans are probably loving right now. But I think Mitch Keller's the what people were thinking was a shoe-in with Sandy Alcantara.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways this trade deadline can go. That's why this episode is tough, is because, like, if one domino falls incorrectly in a way that we think it's not going to, this whole thing is mute, and then every everything is just off the rails, and we look stupid. Lugo, because I just looked at it, has a player option for next year, so
Mhm.
he has an opt out in theory. So what's the value of that gonna be for a team if he can just potentially up and leave? It's like kind of a rental, but maybe it's not because he's also like 36 next year. And what's 36-year-old Seth Lugo really going to get? Is he going to get better than 15? Likely no. I don't know.
Charlie Morton keeps getting 20 on the open market, so maybe.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. We'll talk about Morton at the end. Let's move on to pen pieces because there's a couple. I guess the big one is Classe.
Yep.
Uh, and I see here on your notes you think Phillies.
Yeah, I think the Mets, Phillies, and Cubs are all really eyeing Class A. They all need back of the end bullpen pieces. Like the Mets don't need it as much because they do have Edwin Diaz. But the Cubs, they need back in. Phillies definitely need back in. That's the kind of Achilles heel for the Philadelphia Phillies for the last decade it feels like now.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like Philadelphia is in a position where they know they have the upper hand on the New York Mets. And they really are a bullpen away from being a World Series contender. And they've got to give up whatever they can to get Clase. Now, again, I don't think Cleveland deals Clase unless they're like wowed by the offer.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Philadelphia is so desperate that they might would. Now, there are other pin pieces on the market that Philadelphia can go to. I'm not going to steal your thunder, but you mentioned something about Clase and when he would be dealt and where he would be dealt. But yeah, I mean, I just think Philadelphia is going to be very desperate to get that over the deadline now, at the deadline. And then you still have Johan Duran, you still have Griffin Jacks. One of those two are going to go in Minnesota. They're trying to shed salary because of the whole TV money situation where they're not having as much money but they're still trying to still be competitive. So one of Duran or Jax is going to be moved, and you could say with either one of them, they're a really solid eighth inning guy for a playoff team, and they could be a closer in the right situation. You still have Raisel Iglesias out there, who, other than one bad start or one bad relief appearance, hasn't given up a run since like June 9th or something like that. So Raisel's kind of catching form too, and that could be a sneaky pick.
Yeah,
But yeah, Class A to the Phillies. I
I
just
think
think they're too desperate.
Class A, I think the Phillies add Penn. I think there's other options. I kind of like the Baltimore Philly like pipeline that has developed the last several
Well, yeah,
years.
Felix Bautista.
Yeah, I kind of think Batista, Sir Anthony, like that kind of vibe. I guess I kind of view Class A as like an off-season trade. And I'll tell you why. Because right now in the wild card, Cleveland's only 2 out of that last place spot. So
Yeah,
they
but they
have
are
teams in.
perfectly 500 in everything if you've seen that today.
I did see that. That'll be on the screen right now. They're 51-50 actually as we record this, so feeling great. But I think they're 8-2 in their last 10. They have gotten hot at exactly the correct time that you're like, maybe we don't sell and maybe we actually just hold. Like, I don't think people have talked about, they're like, oh yeah, they're going to trade Quan. I don't think they're going to trade Quan because they can't
Yeah.
find an outfielder to hit already. They're going to trade their best hitting outfielder. I just don't really think so. And they're already only 2 out of a wild card spot. Like they have teams in front of them, but that's not the most unbelievable thing to stay hot and then suddenly you're the last team in and you jump Texas, Tampa, and Boston, or if the Mariners continue to slide. Like a a playoff spot is very real for them. I think it would have to be an insane deal, in my
Yeah.
opinion, to move Class A, especially because he has another year at least after this that they can turn around and move him at the off season if they want
Plus
to.
2 team options after that, right?
I believe that's true. So it's
Yeah.
like he's going to get a haul, but also if you do that, you're kind of waving the white flag on the season. And
Yep.
then this is like a kind of a bad thought, but like Jose Ramirez is not getting younger. Like how
Yep.
many
That is
more
true.
years is Jose Ramirez going to be that guy? And every time you sell, he's just 1 year closer to that cliff of time that's coming eventually that hits everybody except
Yeah. I
Salvi
mean,
and like Carlos
very
Santana.
true. But we've also seen Cleveland kind of do this similar, like Tampa Bay Rays devil magic kind of thing, where they trade people when they can't pay them anymore or when they don't want to pay them anymore and they make lateral moves. And again, Clase wouldn't be a lateral move. You're getting rid of one of the better closers in baseball who is controllable for really the next 4 years, if you count this year. So again, have to be wild. But what you potentially could get back from Philadelphia could be what reloads your team to win next year or win the year after when Jose Ramirez is still young enough to still be the leader of this team and do what he's doing with a 290 batting average, 20 steals, 30 homers, and 100 plus RBIs.
Yeah.
So they have funny magic of doing it. And for the sake of having conversation, that's why I'm saying Clase to the Philly.
Yeah, for sure. It's great YouTube content, dude.
Great content for the content, as
For
we
the
like to say.
content, as we always like to say on the channel. Hit subscribe, by the way, if you didn't do that 30 minutes ago and I told you, do it now. It's worth it, I promise. And if you're like, these guys suck later, you can unsubscribe. Uh, I guess the team that I feel like we should talk about that's a seller that we haven't super dug into yet is going to be Baltimore. So they have a
Yep.
lot of guys that could move. I think almost every single expiring contract needs to go. And they have some names that we just haven't talked about really in depth. I mean, we've mentioned Charlie Morton in this
Yep.
episode. Sir Anthony Dominguez, Gregory Soto, does Batista get moved? Ryan O'Hearn is here. Like that's a lot of guys you could get back for people. I guess take your
And none of
pick.
that's touching the core, too.
Yeah, so like it's fine. Like the correct thing for them to do is sell because the season's over. Like Baltimore is dead if that ruins
Yep.
your fandom, Baltimore fans, I'm sorry if I just ruined baseball for you for 2 months. But like the season's done, basically. So now you're like the core is still really good. You still got Gunner, you still got Adley, you have Holiday. Like you have the core to be good. It just didn't work this year. So now you got to retool. And trading 41-year-old Charlie Morton doesn't really hurt that, the long-term plans of the Baltimore Orioles. I guess take your pick on who you want to talk about, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, we'll start with some of the bigger names. I'll skip out on the relievers now, just because we've spent a lot of time talking about pitchers. I'll go with Cedric Mullins. There's gonna be a bidding war for Cedric Mullins. And again, I think it goes back down to like the Class A conversation because both of these two teams need corner outfielders and left-handed bats nonetheless. But the Philadelphia Phillies and New York Mets could both very well get Cedric Mullins. And this is, again, another Philadelphia Phillies pick. If you can't see as the Braves fan here, I'm having Philadelphia be desperate because I like desperate Philadelphians. But I think Philadelphia is desperate to be that NL East team to finally get over the hump that they haven't really, other than the one time they were in the World Series?
I know they played the. I'll look it up. Just keep going.
Yeah, they played. I wasn't the year the Yankees won or something like that. Or the Astros.
I
No,
think
year the
they.
Astros won.
Oh, yeah, recently. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the Astros
But
beat them.
they want to be the NL East team that gets over the hump because the Braves have obviously struggled. The Mets have gone through some turmoil, but they've kind of been there. They were there in 2015. They've been close. Obviously, the Nationals had that run similar to the Braves, where they just got hot, came in as a wild card, and ran the table. So I think Philadelphia is getting towards the end of their competitive window just because of age. Like when I say towards the end, they probably still have another 2 or 3 years. But it is starting to like put up or shut up time. And I think they're trying to be desperate and take this window now. Cedric Mullins to Philadelphia. And I'll just go ahead and say this one too, with Ryan O'Hearn, because I've got O'Hearn on my fantasy team. Ryan O'Hearn could go a lot of different places. I know he's your fever dream as a Texas Ranger fan to fill first base. But I think he's like destined to be like a Milwaukee Brewer or like a Seattle Mariner. But I kind of lean towards Milwaukee. Like Milwaukee needs another left-handed bat in that lineup to kind of balance them out. He's a bopper. He kind of fits kind of how Milwaukee is as kind of like a city. Now, don't get me wrong, Milwaukee really needs like a shortstop or a third baseman, specifically a third baseman. So maybe Ryan McMahon from the Rockies is someone, but do they really want to pay that much money for McMahon? But yeah, I mean, I just think Ryan O'Hearn's a good plug and play in Milwaukee. They're kind of pulling devil magic again, like with uh, pulling up a guy from AAA that's not proven, and they're still winning with the guy going on like 12 out of their last 13 games or whatever
Yeah.
winning record here. So they're doing some crazy stuff right now with some not necessarily low caliber players, but people that we don't expect to perform the way that they're performing. And they can add a boost to that with Ryan O'Hearn. So O'Hearn to Milwaukee and Cedric Mullins to Philadelphia. That takes two of them.
Yeah,
There's no
O'Hearn
more.
is. I would say O'Hearn outside of Eugenio is maybe the most interesting because he fits in the most places. Like every
Yep.
team that's buying could buy Ryan O'Hearn. Like he
Yeah,
kind of
he can play corner outfield. He can play first base. He's a DH. Like
DA like
he can
he's
fit a lot of different things.
yeah, so it's like, how do you predict that? It's going to be like, I could very easily see the Yankees doing that if the Suarez thing doesn't work out. Like I could see the Cubs being like, "Come here and we'll figure it out later." Like
Yeah.
just be the DH for a minute and then we'll figure out like, if you can do like where it fits. I guess I don't know. There's a lot of different ways we could go. I'll talk about Gregory Soto for a minute. The match in heaven that I come to for him is the Mets. The
Yeah.
Mets need lefty relievers. Soto is a lefty reliever. Uh, he's
Are you sure
pitched.
you don't want Aaron Bummer?
Soto has pitched in the playoffs to varying degrees of success. Uh, I think that it just makes sense for the Mets to maybe snipe a left-handed arm, whether it's that or Aaron Bummer, I guess potentially, depending
$9
on
million next year.
what it is. But I think that's interesting. Felix Batista, I don't know if he gets moved. He maybe should. I hear the argument both ways.
Yep.
I don't. It's just like every team could use Felix Batista. Like Texas could use Felix Batista. Boston could use Felix Batista. The Cubs could use Felix. Like every team that's in the hunt right now, if they were like, "Oh yeah, we added Felix Batista," you'd be like, "Sick. That's a baller move." Like, if the Dodgers came out and were like, "Yo, we bolstered the bullpen even more," you'd be like, "Sick. Awesome. That makes a ton of sense." So that's just another guy that I'm like, I don't know where he's winding up, but
Mhm.
he's another guy. He's kind of like Class A, I guess. I guess you would have to be at least semi wowed to move him because he feels like he's their guy.
Yeah, it feels like he is at least who you could give the closing job to while he's still controllable, and they still could have that back end bullpen piece despite getting rid of a Soto or a Sir Anthony Rodriguez
Yeah,
or Dominguez.
yeah. Dominguez there. I guess let's talk about the Yankees just momentarily. They have a third base problem. I think that's well documented. And
Yep.
we both have Suarez going to them. Let's play the imagination game of that doesn't happen. Somebody snipe. The Cubs come in, they get Suarez.
Yep.
In this world, where do they go from there at third base?
I've got two options. So Ryan McMahon would be the obvious choice. Get another lefty masher in that. That again controllable because he's under contract another 3 years or something like that, and the Yankees can swallow that money. And the Rockies need everything, so they'll probably be more desperate to get something back as opposed to just holding on to McMahon like they've tend to have done the last 2 years he's been talked
Yeah,
about in trades. But I do think a sneaky one is Cabrian Hayes from the Pittsburgh Pirates. Like, again, have to be wowed because he is controllable, is younger, but Pirates willing to do a deal with anybody if that means they get more young prospects back. So, but I would still lean towards Ryan McMahon because the Yankees want someone more proven. But Cabrian Hayes could kind of be a sneaky pick.
Cabrian Hayes is like the defensive replacement.
Yeah.
Cabrian Hayes this year, right now, as we record this on July 23rd, a 64 OPS plus, which is not awesome.
No.
That's
And at that point, I would, like I've mentioned, like I mentioned in our predictions here, or what I've said my predictions are, the Google sheet we're looking at. Isaiah Kiner Falefa, that would be the defensive replacement that can actually hit a little bit. It would, and he's been a Yankee, so I could see
3.
that even more. But Key Brian Hayes could also still be sneaky.
I guess for the Yankees, it's like how much, like a bat obviously would be great, right?
Yep.
Uh, but also like the defense over there is a concern, and Brian Hayes is one of the best defensive third basemen in the league. That's the reason he still has a job, right? He's like Andrelton Simmons, but at third base, where the defense is always kind of there, and if he's even like an 80 OPS player, he's like a 4 WAR guy because the glove plays so well over there. Um, like his best season is 2023, and that was a 103 OPS plus. I guess like if you're the Yankees and you're like we can fix him. You do like the girl thing where you see a guy and you're like, I can fix him. There's only a few flaws, and this guy's flaws he can't hit. If you think you could fix him, maybe, but like the defensive problem for the Yankees the last few years has been pretty glaring. I think that was pretty glaring in last year's World Series. It was
Yeah.
just sloppy baseball, and Cabrian Hayes would help fix that. It's just how much are you actually willing to sacrifice at the plate for that trade off, I guess is the question. Because you are still the Yankees, right? There are better options than Ke'Bryan Hayes. I'll even cite Nolan Arenado if he waives the no trade
Yeah.
thing to go there. I don't know. The Yankees have options if not Suarez. Ke'Bryan's interesting to me, obviously. I guess let's stick in Pittsburgh. David Bednar, another big closer. He got kind of shelled early and has been dominant since. I don't think he's allowed to run in 26 outings uh,
Yeah.
consecutively. He is getting traded somewhere, as he probably should. And
Yep.
somebody's going to give up a lot for David Bednar. Who do you think that team is?
Man, I've seen so many people rumored for Bednar, um, and you know what? Let's just randomly pick one. Phew, I've seen mocks to I've seen the Yankees, I've seen Philadelphia, I've seen the Mets, and since I'm sticking with craziness of Clase to Philadelphia, you know what? I said Felix Bautista to the Mets in this. I'm now going to replace him for Bednar. I think Bednar goes to the New York Mets,
Okay.
and Bautista stays in Baltimore.
Interesting. Interesting. I think Bednar is another guy that I have like just circled for Texas that I hope. I don't
Okay.
know that it'll happen, but like that would be Texas just so needs some kind of bullpen help, like any kind of bullpen help. Especially Chris Martin got injured Sunday night, I think, against the Tigers, and he's out for like a month and a half potentially. So they need some kind of back end help.
Well, where the Rangers I think could really play is in that kind of second tier market where like your Pierce Johnsons, where your Aaron Bummers or Raisel Iglesias are, and you could probably get two or three of them and stack a bullpen. Because what I keep looking at, and you watch the Texas Rangers every day, but I really do feel like the Rangers are a bullpen and a bat away from if they get into the dance, you don't want to face them in a short series, and they could do some damage in the playoffs with how good that pitching really is. So I look at the Rangers of if they just get in the dance, they could do what they've done before.
Yeah, so the bit with the Rangers, and we'll go a little Rangers stock for a second, is if the bats get hot and the pitching just maintains even 80% of what they're doing, they're good. They're a World Series team because of how weak the AL is this year.
Yeah,
Uh, that has complicated with the Chris Martin injury, and I think they were going to
yeah,
add a pen arm even without the Chris Martin injury. I think that be, it depends on how the next week goes, which I know is like I harped on that earlier on how insane that is. I think they add a pen arm no matter what because they just have to. I think if they so they just finished sweeping the A's today and they get Atlanta this weekend. Let's say they take 2 out of 3 from your Braves. Sorry, Justin. Let's say they
they're
take
they're terrible right now. It's okay.
Let's say they take 2 out of 3 from the Braves. Let's say they win the Eovaldi start and they win one of Rocker and Leiter's starts. And then after that, they go to the Angels, who are not great and potentially are selling. And we haven't even talked about them. But they take two
I
out of
think
three
they're
from
close enough
them.
where they don't do anything.
Yeah, suddenly, you're 2 days away from the deadline and you're 6 games above 500, you're probably going to spend a little more for a better pen arm than if we just go 500 over the next 6 games.
Yeah,
So I think it's like TBD on the Rangers. I think they're adding a pen arm no matter what, especially after sweeping the A's and taking 2 out of 3 from Detroit. I think,
just what tier?
yeah, it's just, I don't know what level that lands on. Because you're right. Like, I could see Iglesias as like we traded for Andrew Chafin last year, and that didn't work out in a postseason way. But like that level of arm, where it's not like a dude out of the back end. I don't know. I know my friend
Well,
Isaac is real in on Kyle Finnegan, so
yeah. The thing is, I just don't trust that Washington will actually trade him like they did last year. Now, I do think what could be in play for the Rangers is someone like Dennis Santana if the Reds fall off the face of the earth in the next week and a half, like an Emilio Pagan. And heck, if the Cardinals really do decide to sell some, maybe Ryan Helsley.
Yeah. Let's go. I'll go one more guy here, and we'll wrap it up because I think it's an interesting guy, and it's a guy that I think is near and dear to your heart, or at least was at some point. Let's talk some Mike Soroka action. He is, if we counted him as just a reliever, as we're just getting a crotch full of screen here from Justin. Okay, it's
Near
bubbling.
and dear. Yeah.
Uh,
We'll have
yeah,
Mike here for the conversation.
Mike Soroka. If we counted him as just a reliever, we'd be like, this is one of the best relievers that's like attainable at the deadline. But we count him as a starter, so he's not. Like,
Yeah.
he could be a real, like, he's kind of treated as a starter, I think, by most people because that's what he is. But in my
Yeah, but he
mind, like, if
really only
some
has
team
one
adds him and
pitch.
they're like, this is our 2 inning guy 3 times a week, and he's going to throw
Yeah.
the seventh and eighth inning, I'd be kind of in. Like, I think that's worth something.
No, and that's the thing with Mike Soroka right now. It's the sweeper, I believe, is like the dominant pitch that no one can hit. And then everything else he's like getting torched on. I think I was reading on X earlier, which makes sense for Big Maple for what I remember of him in Atlanta. I mean, his fastball was better in Atlanta before all the injury stuff and the Achilles twice and all that. But no, I mean, I do think Soroka needs to be viewed as a tweener, someone that could very well be a bullpen guy for like a Dodgers, for and you name anyone that needs like a multi-inning guy that if you can just have him come in for an inning or two and say you're only throwing the sweeper and then maybe throw the fastball to get him off and then throw the sweeper again and then throw the sweeper and then fastball up and in sweeper. Like if you just play that sweeper, I think again he'll live up to that $9 million salary that Washington has him on, or whoever decides to trade for him. But it's so terrible outside of that one pitch that it's hard to say that he would even be traded at the deadline unless it's just for cash considerations and the 30th best prospect in your system. But could very well, if he's in the right situation, be the reason why a team might win the World Series.
Soroka is like the wild card. I mean, there's a lot of wild cards, obviously,
Oh, there's a ton of them.
but he's in the interesting spot that you could trade for him and it might just be a dud. Like, he
Yeah.
might come to your team and just still have like he's got a 4.85 ERA. Let's say he even has like a 4.6 ERA for your team. That's like okay, but I don't know if that's like worth the trade necessarily. There's like analytics stuff that says maybe he's not been as bad as he should be. Like, as the numbers say this year, he's gotten a little unlucky. He's in Washington. Washington's not like an incredible team, but also like there's a real shot he comes to your team and he's a difference maker. Like, there's a shot that it clicks for him and suddenly like he's starting game 4 in a playoff series for you, right? And it's like,
I don't think he's starting, but I still treat him as a bullpen piece at this point.
yeah, but it's like a difference maker guy. Like,
Yeah.
it's like a tangible, oh, okay, we got this guy to do this in a big moment, and now he's in this big moment doing it versus some of the other guys or we're like Herman Marquez. This is super unfair to Herman Marquez, but if I'm trading for Herman Marquez, I'm not doing that probably thinking, oh, he might pitch in
I
a
mean, he's been
playoff
really good in his last 5 starts. I like dude's turning it around for being so bad earlier.
Yeah, but I am not trading for Marquez with the intent of like this is the guy that's saving the season. Like, he's a
Well,
guy
yeah,
that's
that's why the Atlanta
supplementing
Braves
the
are trading
saving
for
of
him.
the season maybe. But it's like a different thing, I think, for Soroka than it is for some of the other guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe Kyle Hendricks was a better example for that, but
Yep.
doesn't super matter. I guess, commenters, if you made it exactly an hour in, as I say this, Let us know who we missed, because there is so many guys that might get traded. We didn't even talk about Mason Miller. I guess quick hitter. Where
Yeah.
does Mason Miller land? Or does he?
Sacramento.
Okay, I like that. That's where I would have had him as well. That's another guy would have had to get wowed. Oh, actual last guy, because you want to talk about him, Willie Castro.
I think Willie Castro is going to be the steal of the deadline. So we talk about Seattle not getting Eugenio Suarez, according to either one of us, saying he's either a Yankee or he's a Cub. So we never said Seattle gets another corner outfielder, or excuse me, corner infielder. So Willie Castro is someone that can be essentially a plug and play anywhere, switch hitter. He brings a little bit of power, some really good defense. I've got Willie Castro going to the Seattle Mariners, and I do really feel like whoever gets Willie Castro, regardless of the Seattle Mariners take, I just happen to think it's Seattle based on where my brain's kind of connecting people. But I do think Willie Castro might be like the player that is never going to make a headline. But then your team goes on this World Series run or at least a deep playoff run, and you're like, because we got Willie Castro, like he's part of the reason or a big reason on why we're actually doing something. So Willie Castro, steal of the deadline. I'm calling it now, calling my shot with the Babe Ruth. Got a bat back there. I could go hold up, call my shot. But yeah, so Willie Castro, Seattle Mariner. That's just where I have him. And just to put a bow on it, Herman Marquez, like I said, he'll be an Atlanta Brave. He'll just eat innings. Charlie Morton is the Dylan Cease replacement in San Diego with this Jarren Duran trade.
Okay. I like that. I guess commenters, let us know. Who did we miss? We did not talk about every single guy. We didn't even talk about Justin thinking that Marcelo Zuna is a Padre in 2 weeks. It's
Apparently, we got a deal according to some random Spanish guy.
It's all there. So, like, subscribe if you made it this far. Let us know who we missed. Let us know what your favorite team is going to do. Maybe that's the easiest way to go about that. And we'll catch y'all in the next one.